The wind could blow down a full-grown man, but it was the dust that was the worst. If the dust was red, I could figure it was out of Oklahoma where we were. But if it was white, it was part of Texas come to fall on us. And if it was darker, it was probably peppering down from Kansas or Nebraska. Mama always claimed you could see the face of the devil in them sandstorms. He looked hard enough. I don't know about that, it being the devil and all. I can tell you for sure there were times when the sand seemed to have shape, and I thought maybe I could see a face in it. And it was a mean face. It was a face that had come to puff up and blow us away. It might as well have been the devil, though. In a way, it blew Mama and Daddy away, because one night, all the dust in her lungs, dirty pneumonia, the doctor called it, finally clogged up good, and she couldn't breathe, and there wasn't a thing we could do about it. Before morning, she was dead. I finally fell asleep in a chair by her bed, holding her cold hand, listening to the wind outside. When I went to look for Daddy, I found him out in the barn. He'd hung himself from a rafter with a plow line from the old mule harness. He had a note pinned to his shirt that said, "I cannot take it with your mama, Dad. I love you and I'm sorry." It was not a long note, but it was clear, and even without the note, I'd have got the message. It hadn't been long since he'd done it, because there was still a slight swing to his body, and his shadow waved back and forth across the floor, and his body was still warm. I got up on the old milking stool and cut him down with my pocket knife, my hand trembling all the while I'd done it. I went inside and got Mama, managed to carry her down to the porch and lay her on an old tarp and tug her out to the barn. Then the sandstorm came again, like he was just waiting on me to get inside. He was slamming the boards on the outside of the barn all the time I dug. The sky turned dark as the inside of a cow, even though it was midday. I lit a lantern and dug by that light. The floor of the barn was dirt, and it was packed down hard and tight from when we still had animals walking around. I had to work pretty hard at digging until the ground got cracked and I was down a few inches. Then it was soft earth and I was able to dig quicker. Digging was all I let myself think about, because if I stopped to think about how the only family I had was going down into a hole, I don't know how I could have done it. I wrapped Mama and Daddy in the tarp and dragged them into the hole side by side, gentle as I could. I started covering them up, but all of a sudden I was as weak as a newborn kitten. I sat down on the side of the grave and looked at their shapes under the tarp. I can't tell you how empty I felt. I even thought about taking that plow line and doing to myself what Daddy had done. But I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to be like the heroes in the books I had read about, who could stand up against anything and keep on coming. I hate to say it about my daddy, but he had taken the coward's way out, and I had never been a coward and wasn't about to start. Still, I broke down and started crying, and I couldn't stop, though there didn't seem to be much wet in me. The world was dry, and so was I, and all the time I cried, I heaved like someone sick with nothing left inside to throw up. The storm howled and rattled the boards in the barn. The sand drifted through the cracks and filled the air like a fine powder, and the powder was the color of blood. It was Oklahoma soil that was killing us that day, and not no other. In an odd way, I found that worse. It seemed more personal than dirt from Texas, Kansas, or the wilds of Nebraska. The lantern light made the powder gleam. I sat there and stared at the blood-colored mist, and finally got up the strength to stand and finish covering Mama and Daddy, mashing the dirt down tight and flat with the back of the shovel, and I was done. I started to say some words over them, but the truth was I wasn't feeling all that religious right then, so I didn't say nothing, but I love you too. But you shouldn't have gone and killed yourself, Dad. That wasn't any kind of way to do. I got the lantern and set it by the door, pulled some goggles off a nail and slipped them on. They had belonged to my granddaddy, who had been an aviator in World War I, and though I hadn't known him very well, before he died, he had left them to me. It was a good thing, because I knowed a couple of fellows that got their eyes scraped off by blowing sand and gone plumb blind. I put the goggles on, blew out the lantern. Wasn't no use trying to carry it out there in the dark, because the wind was blowing out. I set it down on the floor again, opened up the barn door, got hold of the rope Daddy had tied to a nail outside, and followed it through the dark with the wind blowing that sand and just scraping me like the dry tongue of a cat. I followed it over to where it was tied to the porch of the house, and then when I let go of it, I had to feel my way around till I got hold of the doorknob and pushed myself inside. I remember thinking right then that things couldn't get no worse, but I was wrong. Thank you. The Dust Bowl, of course, was more